Hey guys, it's Daniel. The following is a previously unreleased clip from my interview with composer Howard Blake.
How did you end up working at Abbey Road? You mentioned you were in your 20s playing piano at clubs and bars and someone spotted you. Is that essentially how it started?
I started playing in pubs and clubs around London, and I absolutely loved doing it. So I was playing at a pub, and I used to play also at a nightclub after the pub. So I used to play from 7 to 11, and then I go down, go for 20 minutes, walk to a nightclub, and then I'd play till 2 o'clock in the morning. So actually I just used to play the piano all the time for a while, and made quite a lot of money doing it actually. So that and then how the next step was I was playing in a club, the Ad-Lib Club in Leicester Square. I was actually playing Hammond organ in a group, and a guy came up to me. He said, "I'm a talent scout for EMI." He said, "Do you want to come and be in-house pianist at Abbey Road?" I said,
That's awesome.
I said, "Is that serious?" I said, "Who are you? Is it serious?" And he was actually the head of EMI. His name was Paramore. And I said, "Well, when do you want me to come?" He said, "Tomorrow at 10. I said, "I'll be there." So I became in-house pianist at Abbey Road, and as such, I played for all the rock groups. I played for everybody, any sort of music you like. So, and I mean, the very first recording I played on was Paul McCartney was playing tambourine, and the members of Led Zeppelin were the rest of the group. So that I was suddenly hurled into this whole sort of pop rock scene, which was, so it was a terrific place to be. It was actually just before they became Led Zeppelin. I didn't ever play with them. That was on my very first recording session. It was the members of Led Zeppelin, plus Paul McCartney, and plus me on piano, and it was a very jolly event, and everybody was very nice. I remember talking to the bass guitarist John Paul Jones, and he was very quiet. If you'd met him, you'd have thought he was a very, very sort of shy little public school boy, and then he suddenly plays his bass guitar on this massive sound code comes out, so it doesn't quite match somehow. So and I do yes, I remember. So that was quite an occasion, and it's my first introduction to recording.
Did the Beatles as a whole record at Abbey Road during your time there when you were an employee?
Yes, they were in residence. In fact, they were their base was Studio 2, Abbey Road, and it's a very high studio. It's about 60 feet high, and it had these segmented areas, and one of these segmented areas, which it was just piled for 60 foot up with brand new guitars. Electric guitars, they were just thrown in. And people from all over the world had given guitars to the Beatles, and they didn't know what to do with them. So they just had this gigantic guitar pile, which took up what the whole... So I remember that about it. I remember one thing that I sort of learned. I learned a lesson one day because one would always... I was very sort of nervous about appearing on stage, actually, which I liked performing in studios, and I think studio musicians are actually very often like that they because there are people who love to show off and be on stage, and there are people who don't love to be. And at that time, I used to get very nervous. And I remember on one occasion we were playing for some big group, and they said the BBC decided we're going to film the whole the whole session, warts and all. So, and I actually thought, I'm really nervous at that. And then somebody said to me, I think it was Big Jim Sullivan, who used to play on. He was the most marvelous guitarist of all time, and Big Jim was on this. And I said, I don't really like that, with filming. How are we supposed to behave? He said, listen, just behave like you normally do, which is really badly. He said, do whatever you normally do, just walk up, just ignore them completely and it'll come out fine. I said, you sure? He said, yeah. He said, that's what I was doing anyway. So we were this group. Clem Catini would have been on drums, and Big Jim Sullivan, and Alan Parker, another great guitarist. Anyway, and the BBC came, and we're going, oi, isn't it time for a break? I think I'm going now. And Big Jim said, I've just got to go down to the shops and get a new guitar string. Won't be long. And the BBC, they go, I said, we're filming. Sorry. What's he doing? Oh, he's pretend. I think they're pretending to. And it was. That was quite fun. It was a riotous film. That's in Studio One.
That's hilarious.
It's so funny. So, obviously, the band that's most famous for having worked at Abbey Road is the Beatles, right?
Indeed.
You said you worked with Paul McCartney at Abbey Road, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, Paul is a very nice, quiet, very easy person to get on with, and as I was telling you that he played on that very first session I ever did, which was on Thank You Very Much. Thank you very much for the entry iron. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. He played, and I was amazed, and he was playing tambourine on it. And he didn't have to play tambourine on it, but it was with scaffold. And his brother, Mike McGear, I think that's right, Mike McGill, that was his group, Scaffold. It's a Liverpool group. And they were playing. And Paul came along to sort of give him moral support. And so there's Paul just playing away on the tambourine. And I thought that was a very nice thing to do. I've since met in various places. He came to my stage show not so long, for 4 or 5 years ago. I have this stage show of Submarine runs in London every year. And one evening, the whole McCartney family occupied the entire front row of the theatre. There was about 40 people. Go right. And Paul sat in them, and he got a huge video camera with him. And anyway, one of our usherettes went up to him. I don't know, she's about 18 years old or something. She goes up to him and she said, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't use that machine in here. We don't allow it." And he said, "I am Paul McCartney." And she'd never heard of Paul. She was very young. She said, I don't care who you are. You can't use that machine in here." So she confiscated, took it away. And anyway, he thought it was quite funny, and so did we. So it being famous isn't all it's cracked up to be. There were an amazing number of studios in London in the 60s. And CTS Wembley became actually the top one for recording films. That's miles away. And then there are all sorts of other studios, Pye and Phillips and different record labels. So when you went to Abbey Road, there was just one of there. I think there were something like 100 recording studios in London in like late 60s. you'd go in. There were Studio 1, 2, 3, and you would see people. You would see people passing in the hall, and you'd see them in the coffee bar. But on the whole, people were in the studios working, and it's curious. There's not much of a social mixing within a studio like Abbey Road. People are just too busy working. But and often you'd see people and think, I seem to know that face, and they might quite well have been Pink Floyd, and I didn't recognise them. But when you see people just wearing ordinary clothes and they're not in their full drag on stage, it's quite hard to think who they might be.